So we're back with what we're going to call Revisiting Pensacola's Black History, the after show party. Oh, that was a good joke, Troy. Okay. We're here with what we're going to call the Revisiting Pensacola's History, the after show party. And I am excited to have specifically talking about, although you could talk about education too, politics and business and that conflict. Former City Councilwoman Jewel Canada Wynn and had been Mayor Pro Tem as educator, 30-year. Well, you've been a servant longer than that because you had military service.
So I have been a servant
and
all
public
of my
service.
life. Public service.
I was struck that you talked about when we were having this conversation a few days ago that you talked about the challenge not only of those in public service. I want you to talk about your public service, but people who want to get involved in public service and literally being, as we talked about with Bimbo, being threatened with do not support this candidate, do not support this candidate, do not support this issue, especially around the idea of unions and a particular party, political party. So yeah, you brought that up. Yeah, expand on that for me.
Right now in our political climate, even though it was threatening years ago to Mr. Bimbo, one thing that is different today is that there was a unity around the issue, and the unity was around the strength. So even though you could get threatened by things, you say, okay, I have somebody who has my back. I have a community that has my back. And today there are a lot of elements, and that element is about money. When you decide to run for office, you sometimes have to really look at that and see how are the political pressures going to impact how I pay my mortgage, how I pay the utilities, so are the things that I'm going to have to do, or the party that I'm going to be a part of, is it going to do it? So you have to feel secure in that and just follow. My godmother said, always follow the money. And for your survival, you also have to follow the money. But there are those silent things also that impact us economically in that political participation. Because there are great people out in our community, and you're sometimes wondering, why are they not running for office? They have great ideas, why are they not running for office? Why do they not give us that strength? And I can't say what it is, but I do know that there are businesses that will not allow people even to participate in political campaigns. Because, oh no, you can't participate in that political campaign or you're not going to have a job. So the struggle is real. So
you can't participate in that campaign. Is that during business hours?
Anytime. No, that's anytime. They don't want to see your picture on no political literature. It doesn't matter whether it's during your work time. It's anytime. And
because now social media allows you to, so we talk about that it's flat.
It's flat.
That this world is flat. Social media allows you to see whose idea or issue that you're supporting.
Another thing is the regression of I read an article, and one of the things in the African American community, those organizations who stood up years and years ago for justice, whether or not you were the black church or you stood up for justice, sometimes they have been silenced. And I call it the nonprofit status silence. Okay, so they have been silenced because they don't want to do anything that's going to jeopardize the nonprofit status. And so therefore, we as black people, we're going to take care of us. I mean, there's an organization out there that's going to feed you. There's an organization out there that may help you with this. They're going to help you with that. They're going to be with your children. But we have to have a political presence as well. And some of those great institutions that are out there, to me, have been silenced by the 501c3 because they do not want to do anything to get there. And because the only thing to do is you don't pay sales tax as well. Is that enough to shut your mouth? And so those economic things here, those struggles are real in our community,
So as
because
City
we
Anae
have
talked
learned
about
not to
earlier,
navigate
yeah,
it.
she talked
Mhm.
about earlier the Freemasons coming
Right.
up and standing up, and the churches and
The churches, everyone standing up and standing in the gap and saying,
Yeah.
okay, we are black people, we are strong, we are God's creatures, we are not, the Constitution is for all of us.
Mm-hmm.
It is just not for the white man, it is for all of us.
Or not someone who only wants to support this
With
particular
the
party
party
or
and
this
that particular
issue,
party, we are here to support that. And I always tell people when they talk about, you know, God and everything, Jesus is justice. So he's not separated.
That should be a bumper sticker.
So he is not separated from the justice for his people. He is not separated from that. But that economic thing is real because people are not going to do anything. And the punishment is severe. So if you cross that line, there is a punishment. Now, no one has written the punishment out there, but there is a punishment.
In terms of no job.
And no job. You can't get a job. You're not going to get an interview. No one's going to talk to. No interviews. None of that. You're not going to be offered those jobs. So there is a punishment. There is an unspoken punishment that will happen. So the issue of that economic struggle is real.
So during your time in office, you served 2 terms?
I served 14 years.
14, oh wow.
I served 14 years.
Wow.
Yeah, so I served.
But non-contiguous, so because
Right.
It was a break in
It was a
there.
break. It was
Okay,
2 years.
okay,
Okay.
so-
It was a 2-year. It was a 2-year break, and then I came
Okay.
back up under the new mayor form of
the mayor
government because I
form of
was up under
government.
the
Okay,
council
okay.
manager form of government.
So were you ever threatened?
No. No, I was never threatened.
Or did you ever feel threatened?
I never felt
Or both?
threatened. I always felt that I always prayed about my decisions that I make. And so one of those things is I'm going to make this decision. I'm going to decide this, and this is it. I know some people are not going to like it. That's okay. You're going to have to get over it because this is the right thing to do for my community. This is the right thing to do for the city. So I never felt that sense of being threatened because my money to pay the electric bills did not come from my work as a city council member.
Okay.
So my work, my full work, came from another source. So it helped because, you know, Councilwoman Tenata, they make more. I mean, they were paying us less than $12,000 a year. I mean, we always, the educators always said we got 25 cents an hour as a teacher, as an educator.
Wow.
That was the same thing you get as a politician. It's 25 cents an hour because it's a 24-hour thing and it's 365 days a year. And so I just never felt that type of economic pressure. There were other pressures being a African American elected official. It was like social pressures because sometimes you don't know what your community wants from you. Your African American community want from you. Sometimes they don't come to a meeting to tell you. They don't come to a town hall. And so you just have to pick those things that you know are important. Education of our children, safety, for our children. We want our neighborhoods to be improved. Because someone used to come on, you know what I want. You know what we want. Well, no, I don't know what you want. You need to tell me what you want.
Is that because regardless of the district lines?
Regardless of the district line, you covered everybody.
You're African American, and so the general sense is that you represent all
You
of
represent
us.
everybody. And so the pressure was not economic for me. It was more of trying to ensure that I do cover the needs of my community, but I'm able to answer those questions for the African American community and represent them well.
So
that is
I
a
want
pressure.
to go back to Nick Williams and to Dr. Polkinghorn. That is just such an interesting story. And so I don't know that we expanded on it during the segment, but what happened is essentially they wrote a letter. They both ran for office for city council, and then literally, was it on the same paper? It was on in the same article. They both resigned, citing Nick Williams, citing that he has contracts, and so we know that Nick Williams was one of the builders or renovators or rebuilders of like the Escambia Hospital, CAY School, not the new one here, but the older one, CAY School, And so he had these government contracts, these municipal contracts. And then Dr. James Polkinghorne was in business for himself. He was a pharmacist. And and he had a store, a home-based store that, and then he did his pharmacy out of his home as well after he shuttered his the business, the building. Then he moved his pharmacy to his house. And so you saw them, what we consider, I think Tanyane and I consider this sort of veiled threat of this economic repercussions if you don't do it. So I wonder if it's a difference if you're already in the public service as you were versus someone being in private, because now I can decide not to bring my business to you. If I'm going to build or renovate a house, I can decide not to use you, or I'm going to decide not to let you have this contract, or I'm going to decide not to have you fill my prescription. It all goes to that money.
Yeah, but today's climate, it does not matter, because now today's climate, economics is being decided by your political party and who you support and whose side you fall on.
Regardless of if you decide to run.
Regardless of who so you're looking at now, people are saying, of course, people don't even want to talk about, you can't even talk about certain politics now. But it is the fear that someone is going to hear what you say and take it back to the workplace or take it back to someone else.
And essentially then you'll be canceled.
And then you'll be canceled or
without,
whatever.
Yeah,
so now it's just the same snake at a different time that comes back to bite you and to suppress you as an individual, as a full participant in a political system that you have fought for, in that life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. So it's just up under a different umbrella, but it is the same matter to control that voice, to control that person, and we control that person through the purse strings, through the dollar.
The same snake, just a different. Wow, that's powerful. Slithering through. That's a vision.
Yeah, it still slithers through all the way through the years and all through the generations. And we as a people can counteract that by our economic power. By our economic power.
Was it Operation Breadbasket? Reverend Jesse Jackson and Reverend Al Sharpton often talk about the buying power. I have a friend in the audience here who really follows that, and as a retired teacher, she often talks about that buying power and
it's
how
the
you
buying
use
power.
the power of the black dollar during the LGBT rise in the 70s and 80s. They talked about the pink dollar, and so really making sure that your dollar follows your rights. And if someone's not giving you a right to engage in business over here, then I'm going to take my dollar somewhere else.
And you take your dollar somewhere else, and you also take your vote, because people are allowed to do those practices because the policies, the policies of your government, whether it's state and local, do not support action that will stop that. That will stop that. And so you want to be able to say, okay, right now I think the whole world in the U.S. and us are regrouping. And it's a great time to regroup as well. It's a great time to really, that question is, where do we go from here? And of course, where do we go from here? We continue to fight. We continue to stand. We continue to mobilize. We continue to create black businesses so that black businesses can connect. We continue to educate our children. No one can tell us we can't educate our children into our black culture. We don't have to leave that up to somebody else to do it because of that. So I do feel that it is a time. People think of it as a difficult time, but I think it's a great time for us as African American to really be reflective on where we want our destiny to land.
The Sankofa, as she mentioned, look back and moving forward.
And moving forward,
you learn from those histories. Let's open. Anyone in the audience have a question? I'll repeat the question on the air. So, go ahead. Go ahead. I'll repeat it on the air. Yeah.
And I was a former council person in Maryland, but not as many terms as you. Actually, what are the term limits here in Florida? Is it 2 years or 4 years? for the term before you re-elected?
City council now is 4 years. When I first ran for office in 2004, we did 2-year terms. And so in 2010, we transitioned to a strong mayor form of government, and we extended the terms to 4 years. And we have a term limit of three terms, which is 12 years.
Oh, okay, yeah, we were 4 years.
So what was your question? I want to make sure not to miss the question.
The question,
Bring the camera a little bit.
well, that was one of my questions.
Okay.
And then the other question is, like, I want to know if I was following you correctly, what you were saying about black businesses and forming your own and patronizing your own black business. Is that what you were saying also? That we need to mobilize in the community and you know, as I think was said also about eat before you leave home, I took that also as to, you know, stay within your community or patronize black businesses. Is that what the understanding I was getting from you? Okay, thank you.
I don't know if it's National Urban League. Years ago, there was a National
Urban League.
It's a National Urban League. So again, the power for African Americans has always been its unity. The thread that kept us together was also our churches. They kept us together, our unity, our black community, because you knew that right there, that was your power and that's your strength. And that's why others try to destroy that, because they know that that is where the power is. And if we appreciate that power and put that power back together, not talking about ourselves, not wanting to be the big shot of everything, but coming together economically and through all of our social organization, including our most powerful group is our churches, then we right now, anybody can sit in the White House. And just like the pastor said on Sunday, we are not scared. We are not afraid. We were going to stand on righteousness, and we're going to stand on our constitutional rights.
That's your lock it and block it,
Yes.
Pastor. To listen to him on the radio. Lock it and block it, Reverend Thompson. So I want to kind of put a couple of things in your head. So when you mentioned the Urban League, I think it was them that coined the phrase. It wasn't urban renewal, it was urban removal. And so this whole idea that we're going to renew this area, but in fact you move out these communities, and the church moves, the school moves, and then the businesses move, and then the people move. And so you have this dispersion of people.
Yes.
So it's not urban, and then they're not invited back.
And I don't know if Councilwoman Broughton often gets the conversation, but we get the conversation about gentrification.
And that's a part of it. So what is the balance then between renewing communities and this political process and then this idea of charity begins at home? What is that balance, so that if you want the better sidewalks and things like that in your community, and they're saying, well, you have to move out, but then again, you're not being invited back in that. Does that make sense?
It does make sense, but you never had to move out. Okay, the problem with the moving out part to me was that you moved out because you thought things were better elsewhere, but things could not have been better elsewhere.
But in this case, what the Urban League was saying is that you were trying to get it better right where you are. So you said move out and then I can move back, but I wasn't invited to move back.
No.
So what you're saying is even what you moved out to was not better.
Was not necessary. Or you had a better, you may have a house in a different neighborhood, but did you have that love of community? Did you have that feeling of building something in the community? Did you have that feeling of watching children grow, our children grow and be successful? Did you have that? You did not have that sense of community. You had to stay, because you staying built the community. The government didn't build the community. You know, no one else. You built the community. So when you left the community, you took the community with you. And so now economics again plays another role in this. Now you get ready to come back. You're not going to be invited back unless you have the money to get invited back.
Because now when you move back,
When you move back,
the taxes may
it's
be
10
higher
times
and the housing prices
as expensive for you to come back. And so now that you want to come back, it's hard for you to get back in because of that cost. It's that dollar again. And so now we find ourselves dispersed. All over. That dispersion also impacted our voting power. It not only impacted our economic power, because we don't know where all of our business are and how we need to get there, but it also impacted our voting power.
or even if the business moved, if they were able to survive, because now you may have to get a whole new customer base.
Yeah, and so now, but that dispersion also, again, going back to this economics, and its political ramifications impacts our voting power as a people.
And because you may not only move out of the neighborhood, you may move out of the particular political district.
Political district. And so
Yeah,
now
wow,
you
you
moved
think about
out of the
that.
political
Yeah.
district, and so now you have the council person
I think you're
or
gonna
the
get up here and make
mayor.
me think.
And the mayor, not the mayor, but your
Yeah.
commissioner and all,
Yeah,
trying
it's
to
a whole
figure out
different district.
how do I bring us together? How do I let us know that we are powerful? We are still powerful, but because we are dispersed, we need to recognize that.
Yeah.
And how do we bring ourselves together in unity to stand for what we want? And so again, all of these things, the economics and everything plays a part in how we are going to have to move forward as a community and as a black people.
Yeah.
And to be able to make sure, because everyone knows our strength. It's not that it's hidden. It is. Everyone tries to destroy it. Everyone tries to go after our churches. Everyone tries to go after our schools. They attack our intellect. Like even when we were slaves on the ship, we already knew how to farm. We knew already. We built pyramids. We were engineers. So everyone wants to take those things away from us, and we have to stand and say, "You can't take that from us.
Yeah.
We're not going to let you."
Yeah. It's not only rewriting history, it's sometimes just never being included. What
And
we
never
find-
being included.
Yeah, the project that Tiniade alluded to, the writing the past, is what 99% of the documents that we found were publicly available. So it's not that the information wasn't there, the story wasn't there. It was that it just was not brought to light. It wasn't valued.
And I'm going to mention the
like Salvador
integration.
Pons, like she was talking
the
about.
segregation and integration. So I went to school, my first 6 years was segregated. And so it was a totally different experience being loved in a predominantly black school. It was, you knew they loved you. You knew they was going to teach you how to read, even though you had to read books from the white school, and you knew they were from the white school, and they would use books because they would sometimes write in there, "Niggas can't read."
Oh, wow.
Those types of things would be
So they
in the
knew
books.
that these books were being
passed on to us. The most traumatic experience that I can still remember today is when Escambia County fully integrated. And when they fully integrated, the principal called all of the schools, because he was the elementary and the high school principal. So he called us, the elementary kids, we all walked over across the railroad track to Carver High School.
This is in Century,
It's
Florida.
in Century. And he put us all in there, and he says, "I have something to tell you." And we were just sitting right there. He said, "There will be no more black schools." He said, "There will be no more black schools." And we all cried. I mean, it was like the family was being destroyed. We all cried, and we were holding on to him. And I remember holding on to him, and we were crying, and we said, "They can't take our school away. They can't take our school away." It is a most powerful thing, that integration. And it was powerful on the black culture. Now, of course, you had the intelligentsia, the academics who supported it and wanted it, and it's still out. But there were some things, just like Councilwoman Broughton says, there were some things that we tripped up on. And we need to go back to make sure that as we move forward as a people, we are together and understanding those mistakes.
I went to, I think in my family, I think I've said this a couple of times, and I think this is true. I have to ask my elder siblings that I was the first one to go to all integrated schools. In my family, I'm the last of 8, and I think I was the only one to go to all integrated schools. And I remember so you went to the same middle school, high school, it was all named the same, all named for a senator back in Arkansas. And so I remember when we get together, siblings back home, we often bring up a couple of teachers. And one, I had a teacher who liked to cuss, Miss Lewis. She loved to cuss. She was an English teacher. She loved to cuss. Loved. Did I say love? She loved to cuss. Miss Jackson, if you watching, she loved to. She loved to cuss. Anyway, so 2 teachers. One, Miss Rudder. These are, I think they had since married and changed name. But both of them would catch us in the hallway as black students, black children would catch us in the hallway, and if you were doing something wrong, the Miss Jackson who liked to cuss would say, "Get your black A over here."
And you knew to get over there, right?
And you knew it, and so you got the sense that they were looking out, and it wasn't the sense, but that they were looking out for you by doing that, but that they had been through as teachers, that they had been through a segregated system, and not only were we part of this new integration, but they were part of this. They were part of it too. Very well educated, very well experience to do this job, but that I didn't think about that they were a part of this experience as well.
And of course, our teachers were not paid the same thing. So it's a total economic issue for Escambia County,
which
probably
is part of those lawsuits that
and
Dr.
part of
Wiggins,
on the lawsuits and all of that. We lost I know in my school, we lost 90% of all of our teachers when doing that transition.
Doing that integration.
Doing that integration. Again, economic. That was dollars. They could no longer teach. Therefore, they could no longer take care of their families. And all of those things. But we can, as a community, be able to address those things and move forward.
I remember I visited, this was decades later, I visited that same teacher who liked to cuss, and so she was talking, she was during class, but this time you could just roam the school, and so, just going back and saying hi, and so she said, "Robin," she said, they're trying to fire." She was near end of retirement. Anyway. She said, they're trying to get rid of me. They're trying to fire me. I said, "For what, Miss Jackson? Cussing?" She said, "Yeah." And I said, "But you know who it was?" I said, it must have been a white parent or something, because we got it all the time. We were used to that she wouldn't cuss loud or anything, but her and Miss Rudder would. They would use some choice words to make sure that we knew that we needed to straighten up, that we were required to do 150% more, be 150% more improved and all that than everybody else.
We also need our young people to want to participate in the system. We have to have that. We can't roll over. You have to have our young individuals come out and participate in the process and change things, because there were the changers that made things possible for me and made things possible for others in the past, and so we can't sit there and just shrug our shoulders, okay? And we need for you to come out, and we need for you to participate in the political process. We need for you to want to run for office.
Run for office,
Run for office,
and support issues
and support issues and
well.
support candidates and to vote.
Be very visible.
And because the black vote is powerful.
Do we have time to talk about education? Do we have time? Carla, can I ask you to come up? Reverend Jordan, can you? Thank you. I want to talk, because I just want to talk about. Let me have your microphone here.
Okay.
Thank you. Y'all give her a hand. Thank you so much, Councilwoman Jewel, my friend. My friend. I see Reverend Jordan gonna tell me something. I'm gonna clip that on you, see if I can, let me have you hold that. I'll do this here. Because I wanna, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
I'm gonna move your hair there.
Okay.
He's like, Robin, I didn't come here for all this, but since you're here.
Since I'm here.
Thank you. This is Reverend Carlia Jordan. Thank you so much for being here and for representing you and Carla for representing St. Paul and the Pensacola Normal School. So y'all are what Celestine Lewis talked about, the living history. So just, can you talk about the importance of education in the United Methodist Church, specifically in the United Methodist Black Church? Because y'all really did make that part of that history here.
Yes, and thank you for having us. And I want to also acknowledge Miss Rachel Harris, who is here representing
Your musician?
Yes, and whose family, along with Carla's family, were pivotal in St. Paul for years, and generations and generations have been pivotal and important to St. Paul's story. And so for United Methodist, as it was then, it is now our position that education that goes beyond what we're taught in school is very important to the church. And so it's not just to the African American church, but particularly in the African American church, because we've known the struggles that we've had many times. And so right now, the United Methodist Church is poised to welcome all people. But we also support and understand the plight of the African American community and are putting our dollars and our efforts back into making sure that education proliferates among our people and our students. And as we know from history, two things. One, history is yet repeating itself. So way back when, even when the slaves, we had some slaves who were free and some who were not free, and they were sitting up in church and they were contributing to George's church, and that was a Methodist church, as I understand it. And that money, the slaves' money, was used to build the balcony to which they were relegated because they were becoming too popular. They were becoming too educated. They were becoming too vocal, and because of that, you know, there was the shutdown. Let's put the blacks up. Let's put them up there. They can't be with us.
Extra for now.
The money that yes, it was their time.
That you pay extra for now.
Yes, and now, you know, and so the church had to go underground. It's the same thing. We've seen what's happening now. We've seen it over and over again. And so as United Methodists, we just stand poised yet to say, we understand, but it has been our history and our legacy to put our money where our mouths are.
It is fascinating to me that, number one, the school still stands, the building of the school, what we think still stands, and that the church still stands. So we know that this was the second location. Where the church is now was the second location in 1912 or 13? 1922? Okay, was there. Okay, so the school preceded the church building that's there now. Okay, all right. So do you know about that early education was that common that the Black United Methodist churches or Methodist Episcopal churches were involved in the schools, or is this, you know, a outlier here in Pensacola?
No, not an outlier, and it was not just United Methodist. So it was Methodist in general as we look at, Methodist, Episcopal, and Methodist. So as we look at the Methodist thread throughout, it's been that Methodist thread that's gone ahead to say, we understand, even if it's African Methodist Episcopal or if it was United Methodist, we all have the understanding that education is important. And I think even
Which
greater.
Allen Chapel, as Swartiniande attends, so she was saying, so that's African Methodist. Okay, CME, the Colored Methodist Episcopal. So you're saying the thread of education went all through that.
It went all through that. And I think the difference then, as we look at it now, it's not so much whether it's which one denomination versus the other denomination. It's really that we have classified ourselves in our own economic positions, and we have failed to toe the line that our ancestors toed. So in church is where we have to come back and we have to teach the values that our ancestors, especially in our Methodist congregations, they understood the value of family and helping one another and building and standing on the shoulders of those who have gone on before. And we kind of got to a place in recent generations where we're teaching our children that we've made it and we're all going off on our own.
Oh, wow.
And we've broken down the family unit. And so the cry right now, I think for African Americans, regardless of our denomination, is to go back to biblical principles. Teach our children our history, which is straight biblical. And the Bible tells us that in Psalm 145 and in Deuteronomy 6, we are to teach our history, we are to teach our children. And then when we teach those things, then we don't see what we just saw now with the last vote, where a lot of our young people voted because they thought they were going to get a stimulus check. And many of them believe a $2,000 stimulus check was worth their vote. Well, $2,000 doesn't buy anything, but they don't live like they know that.
Promising the dollar even before the vote.
Yes.
The old principle deal of buying the vote.
Right,
Wow.
and the principle of really, when we go back, the stories that were told long years ago about slaves, Africans selling Africans, one tribe selling the other tribe to those who are coming over to steal proud men and women and their children from their homeland. We're selling each other and selling out our future, our history for $1.
I got a chance to, we had visited Sierra Leone and got a chance to visit Bunce Island where a lot of this happened. And one of the interpreters was saying that in fact, some of that is not true.
That's good.
So that we have been taught that they were selling, but that some of it was some trickery, that you were promised either we're going to take these Sierra Leoneans or whatever the name was prior to the country or wherever, so Liberian or whatever, whoever along that western coast, and provide for education, provide for more opportunity, so that it was actually that they found notes and records of that. So when we talked about that, revisiting that history, that we've got a lot to learn about that too, that we've been told some things that are in fact not true, that the continent is saying, wait a minute, that wasn't our entire story. And so when we saw the woman king, people were surprised that, you had these, we didn't even talk about gender, that people were surprised about these women who rule these nations and tribal nations or whatever, they're called there. So we got a lot to learn.
We still do, because one of the things that I think is really great and interesting is that the Bible has women who ruled. And we don't talk about it. And we talk about women can't do this, can't lead. The Bible has women who ruled.
And the very principle that this country says it stands on.
Yes.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you. I like your energy too. No, keep the microphone. We're done. Thank y'all so much. We're again, thank you to WBQP TV, to Celestine Lewis and the Jacqueline Harris Preparatory Academy. I'm not going to tell y'all what the camera folks are doing behind us. But they're having a good time for this. Again, thank you to Teniade Broughton. I'm Robin Richard. Thank y'all so much. And for real this time, good night. Good night. Thank you, Reverend Jordan. Thank you.
Thank you.